The original Friday the 13th released in 1980 and made Paramount a load of money at the box office. And one thing's for certain in Hollywood, if a movie makes money, we're getting a sequel.
More.
One major problem though, how do you make a sequel when almost all the characters, including the villain, have been killed off? Well, that's the conundrum Sean Cunningham was in. He initially thought about turning Friday the 13th into an anthology series and have different characters and unconnected stories taking place on Friday the 13th. Bringing back Jason wasn't even a thought in his head. To him, Friday the 13th was grounded in reality, and Jason coming back from the dead destroyed that notion. So let us know in the comments, do you think Friday the 13th could have worked as an anthology series? I kinda do. The studio, on the other hand, had different thoughts and pushed for Jason to come back and be the antagonist. Cunningham already wasn't very interested in making another horror film anyway. Friday the 13th wasn't a passion project, merely a way to make money so he could fund another project. So after the anthology idea was turned down, he decided to just step away from the project altogether. Following his exit was screenwriter Victor Miller, who wasn't interested in writing a script bringing back Jason either. They wouldn't be the only two either. Legendary makeup artist Tom Savini couldn't wrap his head around the idea of Jason being alive, surviving on crawfish this whole time, and he decided to walk away from the project as well. To fill the director's chair was Steve Miner. He was a line producer on the original film and a friend of Cunningham's. He never went to school, but learned all the nooks and crannies from working different jobs on different movies. With Steve Miner taking over the director's chair, Cunningham agreed to come back as producer to help out Steve Miner and sort of mentor him on the film. To replace Victor Miller as screenwriter, Ron Kurz was brought on. If you remember, Kurz was brought on to the first film to add humor to the script, and he was responsible for that really bad cop scene that I really don't like from the first movie. Tom Savini was a little harder to replace. At first, legendary Stan Winston came on board to do the makeup and effects, but he had to bow out due to other commitments. Lucky for them, they were able to get in contact to Carl Fullerton. On the returning side, much of the crew came back and even got promotions. Music composer Harry Manfredini also returned to deliver yet another amazing score, building on what he started in the first film. As far as returning cast, we have 3. Adrienne King returns to play Alice, even if it was just for a short period of time, to the dismay of many fans. We also have Crazy Ralph once again making an appearance to try to warn the incoming counselors. And last but certainly not least, Betsy Palmer, who only shot for half a day. She was even quite surprised to be asked to return as her character was killed off in the first film. But she accepted the job and the paycheck. She later stated that she never even watched the second film. To fill in for the rest of the cast, they had auditions for 1 month. As casting director Meg Simon recalled, "We spent a month on casting. It was pretty straightforward. Attractive young people who look good in blood." Amy Steele was hired to play the new protagonist, Ginny. A surprise considering Adrienne King came back from the first film, but we'll get to that in a few minutes. Part 2 was given a bigger budget of $1.25 million, more than doubling the budget of the previous film. With the script and casting complete, the film started filming in October 1980, only about 1 year after the first film. It was shot in Kent, Connecticut. To fill in as the camp for the movie, they filmed at Kenwood Campground, but the camp owner Lloyd Albin was very nervous about the production and only agreed after Paramount said they would shoot off-season and pay to lodge the entire cast and crew at the camp. Fearing campers might get too scared to come back to his camp, he also made it so no panning shots of the camp could be used in the film. So let's go through the story and the production at the same time. Friday the 13th Part 2 starts off with our final girl, Alice, from the first movie. She's at her apartment when someone is watching her from afar. After a jump scare from her cat, Alice gets brutally killed with the ice pick to the head. Why would you kill off your popular protagonist from the first movie? It's a very shocking opening scene. There are two different stories of why this happened. Producers say Adrienne King's agents were asking for way too much money, and they weren't willing to pay it. Adrienne King says with her newfound fame, she got a stalker, and the stress made her want to stay out of the limelight. She later reported that she was willing to come back and was actually super excited about it, but was surprised to find when she came on set that most of the filming had already wrapped and she was just there to record her death scene. They didn't even have it scripted. She improvised all her lines the day of. To make matters worse, the retractable prop ice pick didn't work properly, and the first time they went to jam into her head, it didn't retract and she got injured on the film. Now we get introduced to the new characters. Ginny becomes our main protagonist. Her boyfriend Paul runs the camp. Ted takes over for Ned as the annoying funny character. Ted, Ned, man, they can't even change the name that much. Mark is the good guy in a wheelchair from a motorcycle accident. Jeff and Sandra, well, they're the sex-addicted ones in this one. Terry and Scott are also kind of like that, but they kind of just tease each other most of the movie. And I can't leave out Muffin, of course, the dog of the movie. Once counselors are all at the camp, they have a campfire and tell the tale of Jason at Camp Crystal Lake. But this time, they changed the backstory a little bit. Jason's body was never discovered now, and now there's stories that he walks around the woods, even telling us people around the town have seen him. And then bam, Ted jumps out and gives us a jump scare wearing a mask. It's important to note that this movie does not take place at Camp Crystal Lake. It actually takes place at a different camp nearby, about 5 years after the events of the first movie. And Camp Crystal Lake, it's closed. We find this out when Sandra and Jeff get caught by a cop trespassing, and then the cop warns Paul to keep everyone out. The cop on his way back from this follows the person he sees run into the woods. Look at him run. This just puts a smile on my face. It's so funny. Well, he finds Jason's makeshift house and gets a hammer to his head for the trouble. Crazy Ralph gets strangled by a tree. Then the counselors all eat dinner and split up. Half of them go to the bar and half of them stay at the cabins. At the bar, we get scenes that show Jenny actually cares about the story of Jason and feels really bad for him. Back at the camp is a different story. Terry goes skinny dipping and Scott ends up spying on her. He tries to steal her clothes and run away, but then he gets turned upside down in a trap. Terry goes to find something to cut him down with, but in the meantime, Jason comes and dispatches him with a machete to the throat. Terry is then killed off screen. Mark and Vicky separate. And then we get one of the greatest death scenes in the whole Friday the 13th franchise. Mark goes outside where it's raining, and we get the shot from behind him, expecting something to come from behind, but then out of nowhere a machete comes and hits him in the front. Then him in his wheelchair stumble down the long staircase in the rain. This shot is crazy good. Sandra and Jeff are making love when they get a spear stabbed through them and the bed. This scene was later cut way down by the MPAA. It is also important to note that Sandra and Jeff recorded a very graphic sex scene for this movie. But after filming it, the filmmakers discovered that Marta Kobar was only 16 or 17 at the time of filming and ordered the film to be destroyed. How does that even happen? Don't you have to check like driver's license or something for this? I can't believe this went by everyone. Vicky gets killed by a knife and gives us our first look at Sackhead Jason coming out of the bed. This definitely looks like the movie The Town That Dreaded Sundown. But producers said they wanted to look like something Jason could have actually made himself. I guess. Ginny and Paul get back to camp and a fight ensues with Jason. We get chase scenes, we get a chainsaw fight, and is it just me, or does Jason not come off as very intimidating? Like, look at him, he's kind of tripping all over and falling back. That's not the Jason that I'm used to. Like, I could take him, I think. The chase ends up leading to his hut, where we get the shot I love. Ginny's by the door and there's an open window, and we can see Jason and his sackhead coming closer and closer. I don't know what it is about it, I just really love this scene. Ginny discovers the bodies of her friends and Mrs. Voorhees' decapitated head. Being smart, She dresses up as Mrs. Voorhees and tricks Jason into thinking it's her. This is when we get Betsy Palmer coming back, and boy is it good to see her, as she stole the show from the first movie. Paul comes in and is about to be killed when Jenny slashes Jason through the shoulder with his machete. It's all over. Nope. Thinking they are safe in the other cabin, we get a final jump scare of Jason popping through the window unmasked in all of his glory. But wait, is this a dream? Next thing we know is Jenny's being loaded in the ambulance. Jason's not there. Paul's not there. Fans got confused by the whole Muffin situation. We see Muffin walk up to Jason's feet. Then later on, we see them discover Muffin's dead body in the woods. But then, Ginny and Paul are in the cabin and they hear something at the door. They open it, and there's Muffin, alive and well. But when she's being put in the ambulance, no Muffin. Is Muffin alive? Dead? I'm in the camp that says Muffin didn't make it. Sorry, guys. Was this a dream? We don't know. We never really get an answer. The final shot is a zoom in on Mrs. Voorhees' decapitated head. Originally, the recording has her eyes opening and her smiling, but Steve Miner thought this was too silly to be scary, so they cut it from the movie. And that's how the movie ended. It's important to note that multiple people played Jason in this movie, as many as 5. The only female still to this day, I believe, that has played Jason. But the main person cast as Jason was Warrington Gillette. He first auditioned to play the character Paul, but they noticed he went to school for stunt work and asked him if he'd like to play Jason, and he accepted. He spent hours in the makeup chair and had to go 12 hours at a time with his eye covered. He said it was brutal and painful. After tons of takes of Jason busting through the window, kept going wrong. The glass was not breaking sometimes, they were moving him wrong, and just the long makeup time and the long time being on the wires, Warrington Gillette either quit or got fired. It's not really clear of which one happened. I guess it just depends on who you talk to. So Steve Dash was brought in to take over the role of Jason, not realizing he would have to wear a sack on his head for the entire shoot. Steve Dash would get injured a few times on the set. The first major one was the scene where he jumps at Jenny. He ended up landing on the pickaxe he was carrying when he jumped and broke a few ribs. But the worst injury to Steve Dash came during the filming of the fight scene between Jenny and Jason, when Jenny is swinging a machete and Jason has his pickaxe. The machete ended up hitting Steve Dash in the hand in between 2 fingers, and he almost lost multiple fingers. Lucky for him, he just came out with some stitches. Out of all the Friday the 13th movies, this Jason I think is by far my least favorite. In fact, not only is this my least favorite Jason, I don't like this Jason. It really doesn't do anything for me at all. He's not that intimidating, not that scary. Once they developed Jason and he became what we know him now as, this Jason kind of became useless. I can't really blame them because at that time they didn't really know what Jason was going to become. But this one really is the outlier, as he doesn't look or feel like any other Jason we got in any movie. Friday the 13th Part 2 was released into 1,350 theaters on May 1st, 1981. It grossed $6.4 million opening weekend, on its way to a total of $21.7 million. That's way down from the $59 million that the first Friday the 13th movie made, but still a very profitable film. Critics once again hated it. John Corey from the New York Times wrote, "Friday the 13th will frighten you at least for moments, although it will be a close run thing whether it will be fright, nausea, or simple distaste that gets you first." Wow. It fared much better with audiences, holding about a 50% on Rotten Tomatoes. As for me, I like this movie. It looks a lot better, it's filmed a lot better, we get Jason, but I think I still prefer the original for its simplicity and it feels so real. Something about the first movie just connects with me now, while this one feels more like a movie. As for Sean Cunningham, the movie he made instead of making this one was A Stranger is Watching, and it bombed in 1982. As for Steve Miner, well, he went on to direct Halloween H2O and remains the only person to direct Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees. Victor Miller was working on a script for Cunningham a film called Spring Break, when Cunningham fired his friend over the phone. And this is when the friendship and the working relationship ended. Years later, they would fight it out in court over the rights of Friday the 13th. Well, this movie definitely made money, so you know what that means in Hollywood. We're getting a sequel. Let us know if you like part 2 or the original one better. And make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications and keep an eye out for Friday the 13th 3D. Thanks for watching.